Nice, France, October 1976. Albert Spaghiari sits across from an examining magistrate, calmly answering questions about the largest bank robbery in French history. Then he asks for a piece of paper, telling the judge he wants to write down something that might help explain his side of events. The magistrate looks away just long enough to find a clean sheet. That is the only opening Spaghiari needs. He is on the windowsill before anyone can react, dropping 2 floors onto a parked car below and disappearing onto the back of a motorcycle that was already waiting with its engine running. By the time officers reach the street, he is gone. He will never spend a single day in prison for the robbery. He will never be caught again, and most of the more than $10 million he pulled out of a bank vault 3 months earlier will never be found either. This is the story of the Nice bank robbery, and the man who later explained, in his own words, exactly how he pulled it off, and exactly why he was never afraid of getting caught. The photographer. Nice, early 1970s. Albert Spaghiari ran a small photography shop on a quiet street near the old town. To his neighbors, he was unremarkable, polite, a little eccentric, always ready with a joke. What most of them did not know was that Spaghiari had spent years as a paratrooper in France's colonial wars, and later drifted through far-right political circles built around violence. He had already been arrested once for gun running, and had already escaped from custody once before that. By his 40s, Spaghiari was no longer interested in small crimes. He wanted one job large enough that he would never have to work again, and he had already decided exactly where to find it. Notice the target he chose. Not a jewelry store, not an armored truck, a bank vault built directly beneath a busy street in the heart of Nice. Spaghiari was not looking for an easy target. He was looking for one nobody would think to defend from below. The tunnel. The vault of the Société Générale branch on Avenue Jean Médecin sat behind reinforced concrete with cameras, alarms, and guards covering every entrance above ground. From above, it was nearly impossible to reach. So Spaghiari looked underneath it. Beneath the streets of Nice ran the city's old sewer system, and Spaghiari realized one tunnel passed close enough to the bank that a man could dig the rest of the way by hand. For months, his crew, a mix of safecrackers, former soldiers, and local specialists, mapped the route, studied the bank's blueprints, and timed the patrols above ground. Then they picked their weekend. Bastille Day, 1976, followed immediately by a long holiday. The bank would stay closed for nearly 2 full days, and nobody would check the vault until Monday morning. That choice alone tells us how this crew operated. They were not interested in a fast smash and grab. They were willing to trade speed for time, and time was exactly what a sealed vault, 2 days of silence, and an empty building gave them. The weekend. On the night of July the 16th, Spaghiari and his crew dropped into the sewers and began digging the final stretch toward the vault wall. Once they broke through, they sealed the opening behind them from the inside, so that anyone who wandered into the tunnel would find nothing but solid wall. For the next 48 hours, they worked almost without stopping. They cut through nearly 1 meter of reinforced concrete using hand tools instead of explosives, because a single loud noise risked drawing attention from the street above. They brought food. They brought wine. At one point, the crew even set up a designated corner of the tunnel to use as a bathroom, so the rest of the space stayed livable for 2 days of work. Notice that detail. A team capable of breaching one of the most secure vaults in France also took the time to organize where they would relieve themselves. This was not chaos. It was a job run with the discipline of a military operation, because that is exactly what its leader had once been trained to do. By Sunday night, they were inside the vault itself, surrounded by more than 400 private safe deposit boxes. They opened them one by one with crowbars and drills and filled bags with cash, gold bars, and jewelry. Before they left, Spaghiari did one more thing. He left a note on the floor of the vault, written in his own hand, without weapons, without hate, without violence. Then he and his crew climbed back into the tunnel, sealed it behind them one final time, and disappeared into the city before sunrise. The note. Monday morning, bank employees arrived to find the vault door still locked from the outside, exactly as they had left it. Nothing on the surface looked disturbed. It was only when they stepped inside that they found it. Broken boxes scattered across the floor, a hole in the back wall leading down into darkness, and Spaghiari's note sitting in plain view, as if he wanted it to be the first thing anyone saw. The robbery made front pages across France within hours. Investigators eventually estimated the crew had taken more than $10 million in cash, gold, and valuables from inside those boxes, making it at the time one of the largest bank robberies in history. But what captured the public was not the number, it was the note. A robbery with no violence, no hostages, and no shots fired, carried out with patience and manners by a man who clearly wanted credit for exactly how he had done it: the arrest. For months, Spaghiari stayed free, even as investigators slowly pieced together who had been behind the robbery. The case against him built quietly. A former associate talked. Forensic details from the tunnel matched men police already had files on. In October of 1976, 3 months after the heist, police brought Spaghiari in for questioning. He did not run. He did not deny his identity. He sat across from an examining magistrate and answered question after question, calm and almost relaxed, as if he had been expecting this moment for some time. He had been. The window. Partway through the interrogation, Spaghiari asked for a pen and a piece of paper. He told the magistrate he wanted to write something down, a clarification that might help explain his side of events. The magistrate agreed and looked away just long enough to find a clean sheet of paper. That was the only opening Spaghiari needed. He was on his feet before anyone could react, vaulting onto the windowsill of the second-floor office. Below, on the street, an accomplice was already waiting on a running motorcycle. Spaghiari jumped, landed hard on the roof of a parked car, and was on the back of that motorcycle before the first officer reached the window. Within seconds, he was gone, weaving through Nice traffic in the middle of the afternoon. He had planned this too. The note he asked to write was never about clarifying anything. It was only ever about buying himself 3 seconds of distraction. For a man who had already proven he thought in advance about toilets and tunnels and timing, 3 seconds was more than enough. Gone. Spaghiari was never caught again. He spent the rest of his life moving between Italy, South America, and parts of the Middle East, occasionally surfacing to give interviews about the robbery he was clearly proud of. Of the more than $10 million taken from that vault, only a small fraction was ever recovered. Most of his crew either avoided long sentences or were never definitively identified at all. In 1989, Spaghiari died in Italy of throat cancer, a free man in a country that had never extradited him, having never served a single day for the robbery that made him famous. To this day, French investigators still do not know exactly where most of the missing money ended up, or how many people who helped plan the robbery were never identified at all. Spaggiari spent the rest of his life telling his version of the story, but a man who lied about a note just to buy 3 seconds at a window is not exactly a reliable narrator. Maybe he really did pull off the entire plan single-handedly, exactly the way he claimed in every interview that followed. Or maybe, like every other story on this channel, he was simply the one face willing to take credit in a heist with far more hands involved than anyone was ever able to name. What do you think really happened to the rest of that money? Let us know in the comments and subscribe for the next case.